Play 2 UK, The Tommy Boyd Show.
So what is racism? And is there some value and virtue to be found in it? In as much as we all seek comfort, and we find comfort with people of the same sort of age range, the same class background, the same likes and dislikes, the same prejudices as ourselves. We all find comfort in people who we perceive are a little bit more like us, than other people. Okay, we have to work a little bit harder with people who aren't like us. But is somebody's race a good reason for saying that somebody is or is not like us? Let's go to the Skype lines, and we have Oscar, it is. Who's next? Hello, Oscar.
Hello, Tommy.
Are you well?
I'm okay. Yeah, is my line okay to you?
Jim Dandy. Right.
Okay, sounding good this end as well. It's getting a little bit of echo for a moment, but that sometimes happens initially. Sounding a little bit hoarse now. Am I sounding hoarse to you? A little bit Shetland pony? I sound a bit strange here. Never mind, anyway.
Sorry, Shetland pony?
A little hoarse, isn't it? Isn't that what you may say?
Sorry, yeah, that's very good. Yes, is that sort of suburban Cockney rhyming slang? Kind of. That's very good. A little horse, Shetland pony.
I don't know where that came from. I've heard it somewhere.
Yeah.
But I know you don't like too much flattery, but I must say I've been loving your work over the last few weeks with all the various goings-on. And it's interesting because the subject you opened the show with tonight is it's been on my mind. It was a question that was sort of formulating in my brain that I almost wanted to raise with you if you hadn't have done so. It's a bit of synchronicity or something. Is that the right word for it? I don't know. But this idea about, you've been talking about issues surrounding racism for some time over the last few weeks, and I thought to myself, wouldn't it be good if we could get together and formulate some kind of a definition about what racism is? Because I think it has become clear from the conversations that we've had that people are a little bit unsure, I think, aren't they, as to exactly what it is. People talk about, well, it's involving people with different coloured skin and all that, but at what point does it become racism, and at what point is it just purely an observation of differences between people who are slightly physically different, and when does it become a bad thing? And can we actually formulate some sort of a yardstick which we could put up against anything that anybody says or against anything that anybody does, which would help us to be able to decide fairly instantly, is that thing that someone just said or did racist or not? Because I think we are a little bit confused about it, aren't we? And I was wondering, because I honestly don't know. I don't think I have the answer. I have a suggestion that I'll put forward. And I'm wondering if it isn't when an observation of a difference leads to the emotion of hatred. Maybe if you can identify that the emotion of hatred is kicking in, is that perhaps the key to whether it's actually racism or not? Because there are examples of where you could say, well, for example, if I wanted to go out into the blazing African sun at midday as a white person, which I am, of course, people don't necessarily know that, so I probably need to tell people, but as a white man, if I wanted to go out into the African sun
I'd have put money on it, but that would have still been a shot in the dark. But carry on.
Yeah. I wouldn't be able to withstand that sunshine for as long as a black-skinned person. I know black-skinned people do sunburn, but I wouldn't be able to stand the sunshine as long as a black man. Now, that's not really prejudice or racism. It's just a fact of life that because of the differences, there is a difference. I can't say, well, I have a right to be able to go out into the sunshine for the same amount of time as a black man, because it's just one of those observations of reality which I have to accept. But it is nevertheless it's a recognition of that difference, isn't it? It's not racism, but there are obviously other cases of where you say, well, someone's black, so I'm not going to give him a job. I prefer to give it to someone who's white.
Well, let's do some examples, all right? And you be the judge, okay? The 999 people have got a very famous 999 call made by a retired brigadier from his walled Georgian house somewhere in Kent. He phoned. It was late evening, but not the middle of the night by any means. And he phoned 999 and he said, I think you should know that there is a black man wandering about. Is that racist? It is massively racist, isn't it? I mean, jeez.
Well,
you know, it's ludicrously racist, isn't it?
In a way, it sounds it. But you could probably argue that, well, no, there's a suspicious man wandering around. I want the police to come.
Yes. And
I'm giving a description of him for you, so that it will assist you to arrest him.
Oh God, yeah. Come on, you really are. You've covered yourself in KY jelly and Vaseline tonight. You're being as slippery as you can. That's racist. Because we know, I mean, I haven't heard it. I've only heard it reported by the 999 people who were giving, as they often do now, some examples of ridiculous calls that come in. I mean, we know, we can be 100% certain that what the guy was saying was not there's an odd man loitering around, I don't trust him, and if you want to come and get him, the best way I can identify him is the fact that he's black. Mm-hmm. The way that this was reported by the 999 people, it was absolutely clear that what he was saying was, he must be up to no good, he's black.
Right. So the key to it is what is in the heart of the man when he makes the report, when he makes the observation. If when he makes that observation, as you say, he's looking at the man and thinking, well, he's a black man skulking around, so that means he's very likely to be up to no good. That's obviously racism and prejudice. Yeah. I would agree with you, but does it help to verify or strengthen my definition that the hatred, and obviously hatred manifests itself in various different ways, that to me is an indication that I'm on the right track, at least when I say, how can we identify that racism is actually there? If the man looked and thought, ooh, don't like that, don't like the person, I don't like him because he's black, I hate him, therefore I'm going to ring the police and suggest that he might be a criminal, he might be up to no good, can you come and please remove him? So, yeah, I mean...
Take football then. Take another example. Then you go. Right, you've got some examples. How about this one then, right? Football. Liverpool are playing Everton. Back then, Liverpool only had one black player, a guy called John Barnes. And Everton at the time, it is said, had a clear policy that they wouldn't have any black players, which is something that struck a chord of support with some of their fans. So when Everton played Liverpool this next time, I read that something to the value of 80 quid's worth of bananas were thrown onto the pitch. Whenever John Barnes came running past, bananas would get thrown on. Is that racist? Obviously. But were they so much making a racist, anti-black statement, these Everton fans? Or were they just trying everything they could to throw the opposition off their game? Because what was most important to them was not any notion of white supremacy, but stuffing Liverpool. And I think it's probably a bit of both in the case of most of the fans who threw those bloody bananas. But yeah, was that racist? Well, obviously. Yeah?
Yes, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah. And yet, kind of mitigated by the fact that what was uppermost on their mind was upsetting the opposition. And some of the chants that I've heard have been said, shouted against David Beckham, and shouts about his wife and his child. Chelsea did it apparently one time when he came down to play. Was unacceptable, but obviously wasn't racist, but was just as unacceptable as the banana thing. And there was a footballer called Graham Lasso, who is sort of quasi-intellectual guardian, reader, art collector kind of thing. And so a lot of the other lads who played football decided he must be gay, which he isn't, but it was convenient for them, and so they could occasionally try to put him off his game so that their team would win, with implications that he was homosexual. Is that unacceptable? Yeah, of course. But you have to remember that football fans will try anything they can to put the other guy's team off. Okay, so, although it is unacceptable, although it is personal, although it's racist, in the case of these football chants and activities, there's I'm going to say mitigating factor. In their minds, there's a higher motive to it. Okay, but he's still definitely racist, isn't it? You and I agreed on that? That's
yes,
racist.
I think we are. No, they managed to embed it as well in something where it's kind of tangled up with other things, so that even though you know it's racism, they've kind of got a get-out clause, and it's very difficult for you to pluck it out and be able to take any direct action against it, to punish it in any way. It's difficult. They can almost get away with it, can't they? It's like being nestled in amongst their the activity that they're in, and it gives them that security to be able to do that.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Were you going to give an example yourself, I thought, for a moment there?
Well, there was a question about that I've sort of had in mind as well in the past, and that is a couple of quick examples of racism, and I wonder if you can say which one you think is the worst. If you've got two job applicants going for a job, you have a white boss, two applicants for a job, one black and one white. They seem very, very equal. There's no difference between them. Nothing, not a sliver of paper between them in terms of their academic abilities and their performance in the interview and stuff like that. So the white boss looks at the two of them and thinks, well, I can't decide which one of these is the better. But I'm white, so I'm going to pick the white guy. That's racism, isn't it?
How would you know that the guy who makes the decision, he knows that? He doesn't give that as a reason.
No, he wouldn't give it as a reason. He wouldn't need to give it as a reason, but I'm saying for the purposes of this demonstration that we're inside his mind, and so we know that that's the way he has made that decision is based on racism, really. He said, well, I'm going to pick the white guy because they seem equal, and the only thing I've got to go on is the fact that he's white and I'm white. I'm going to pick him, and I'm going to reject the other guy. You just get a letter saying, well, sorry, on this occasion you weren't successful, is what the black guy gets. That's example number one, anyway, of what I think is racism. Would be hard to prove and everything, but I wanted to compare that with another situation which I also think is racism, and that is a couple of students are at university or college, and you have a white guy and a black girl who are together in university. They spend a lot of time together because their circumstances throw them together. They're at college together. They see each other every day and talk every day, and they fall in love with one another. Mm-hmm. And they have a relationship. It lasts for maybe months and months, and they want to get married. And the parents of the black woman say, hey, we don't approve of this relationship. You better end it now, otherwise we're going to disown you.
Right. Because this boy that you're going out with, my black daughter, is white. Right.
That is also a case of racism, isn't it? By the black parents.
I would say so. I'm gonna come up with one that's just a little bit, I'm going to say it, less black and white. But let me bring Viktor into the conversation, who's been listening to you, Oscar. Hello, Viktor.
Hello, Tommy. Hello, Oscar. How are you doing?
Hi, Viktor. Hello.
It's a very interesting conversation tonight. I actually was thinking about racist jokes, and sometimes jokes which I'm not sure whether they are really racist or not. There is one joke which is quite shocking in Russia, but actually is when you really think about it, you could understand it on different levels. And I was hoping I might tell you the joke, and you can tell me whether you consider that it's a racist joke, an offensive joke, or not an offensive joke.
Okay, let's be clear about this then. You're going to tell us this joke in the spirit of reportage rather than for getting a cheap laugh.
That's right.
And then we are going to have you and me and Oscar and the listener are going to make up our minds whether it is, well, it obviously is racist, isn't it? Otherwise... It's not funny.
Well, it contains something which would a knee-jerk reaction to it would say this is racist. But I would argue, my argument is that a further consideration means that the joke is not on.
Yeah.
The joke is not on the other race person. It is on the joke is on the person who is racist.
I'm up for it. Are you up for it, Oscar?
Yes, I'm up for that. Let's have a listen.
Well, we'll grab the news.
Okay.
Grab the news. That'll take 2 minutes. So, Victor, you can just sharpen your joke-telling technique.
Now, live across the UK, the national and international news update.
Germany attempted today to defuse a row with Poland over a museum highlighting the fate of Germans forced out of Eastern Europe after World War II by saying it had not yet decided who would run it. Many Poles fear the museum will portray Germans as victims of a war they began and strongly object to the prospect of Erika Steinbach, head of the League of Expellees, being in charge. Vatican City today. Pope Benedict has been invited to stop off in Gaza during his trip to the Holy Land in May. The parish priest in Gaza City told a Catholic magazine. Gaza's ruling Hamas group has okayed the invitation from Gaza's small Christian community. Father Manuel Musalam told the Vita non-profit magazine. Father Musalam said he had written to the Pope on behalf of the Christians and the Muslims in Gaza.
UK weather.
Fairly cloudy across much of England, Wales and northwest Scotland. Scattered light showers. Friday generally mild and fair with broken cloud. The cloud thick enough to give a few light showers across central and southern England, turning wet and windy across northern Scotland.
PlayRadioUK.com, part of the Something Corporation.
Here she is, my sexy new MP4 player from City-Sales. The latest technology giving me music and video wherever I go, in a range of stunning colors, all for just £60. And here are her matching speakers. Gorgeous! Plus picture keyrings, audio-visual baby monitors. Oh, she's so cute. And the baby's kinda nice too. The hottest audio-visual equipment straight to your door. Just visit City-Sales.co.uk. City-Sales. Looking good, sounding great.
The Tommy Boyd Show, only on Play 2 UK.
Okay, so go on then, Victor, your joke.
Okay, the scene is in Moscow on a bus. And a gentleman from Siberia who never went to Moscow before, just all the time in the Siberian forest, he gets on the bus and he sees there's a black man on the bus and he says to the other passengers, "Catch him, he's escaped from the zoo, catch the monkey." And they look at him and say, "You should be ashamed of yourself. What do you mean, catch the monkey? That is very rude, what you just said. This gentleman is a man from Africa. You can't just call him catch the monkey." And the guy from Siberia says, "Well, I didn't know. I never been in Moscow before. I only was in Siberia in my village. I never saw black man from Africa." They say, "I think you need to apologize to this gentleman. You go to him, you apologize for calling him a monkey." So he goes up to him and he says, "I like to apologize for calling you monkey." And he says, "Well, that's okay." And the second side goes, "Bloody hell, it talks."
Yes.
That's the joke. Okay. So
if it was us down the pub, out of politeness, for your sake of self-respect, I would have given some kind of a laugh, just to make you not feel bad about your joke-telling ability. But in public, of course, I feel as though I cannot do anything other than go, about that. Because it is... I don't know, who loses out in that joke? I guess the Russian guy from Siberia.
I think this is it. He's the guy that loses out because he's shown to be complete like peasant, yeah. But at the other side, it also panders to to making laugh people who want to imagine black people as like monkeys. So it also is a little bit of a double-edged sword, the joke.
Do you know my main problem with it is that it's not a very funny joke, is it really?
I suppose it's the way I tell them. Maybe you could tell it more interestingly than me.
Well, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't tell it. I spent 2 years, way back, as a stand-up comic, which I found very, very enjoyable in lots of ways and very interesting. And there's a great sense of power in telling a joke and a couple of thousand people laugh, just as there is also an enormous sense of terror when you tell a joke and nobody laughs. And I had to tell some racist jokes were very popular amongst the working class punters that I was standing up telling jokes to. And a few jokes about ethnic minorities went down very well. I got out of doing it because alternative comedy hadn't come along, and I'd have loved to do that because that's not pandering to many prejudices. But yeah, I've stood on stage and I've told jokes which are about as bad as that. I'm not sure whether I should have done, but I don't think I did any lasting harm.
Well, you told last year on the Play Radio, you told the joke about the two Mexicans what jumped off the cliff when there was no water down there. They wanted to see who would hit the ground first and who was the winner.
I don't remember.
Society.
Yeah, society.
You told that joke, you know.
Yeah,
you did tell this.
Yes, but in the spirit of postmodernism, I'm sure, just like Jimmy Carr, who gets away with murder because he makes out that it's the audience's fault for laughing.
Would you like a Russian joke about Ukrainians?
Can I just interject with something about monkeys?
Go ahead.
Have you heard about the story in the USA the other day about the chimpanzee that was shot? Have you heard that?
I did hear it. I read this. He was making a molestation of the woman.
That's right.
I haven't heard this. What is this?
Well, some woman, I think it was in Connecticut, she had a pet chimpanzee, which apparently she's had since it was very young, and it lived with her, and she had a friend came round or something, and this chimpanzee attacked her friend, and has very badly injured this friend of hers, and she called the police. There's recordings been on the news of her calling the police, and the police obviously for a while not realising what on earth was going on, but she managed to explain it. And I think the police came round and have shot the chimpanzee. But the point about when Viktor was telling a monkey joke there, I heard today that there was a cartoon caption in a magazine or a newspaper in America following on from this chimpanzee having been shot. A news story, there's a caption there of two police standing over the body of this chimpanzee that one of them is shot, and one says to the other, well, who's going to write the bailout thing now for America? So
not quite with you. The bailout thing.
Yes, it's about Obama. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So
I catch up quick. Yes, it's obviously very racist.
Very, very racist. Yeah.
But it's interesting. If I tell a Ukrainian joke, you will see or a joke that Russians tell about Ukrainians, you will see the bad blood between the two.
As long as we're absolutely clear here that we all know what's going on, we are definitely investigating racism with a view to establishing our own working definition of it in order to further better the flag that we fly, which is that of free but responsible speech. And at another level, we are using it as an excuse to tell racist jokes. All agreed, men?
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's great that we can explore all these things.
Oh, bollocks. We just want a cheap laugh.
No, it's not just a cheap laugh.
Yes, it is. Oh, Oscar, you're just not in touch with yourself.
We want to be able to explore all these ideas. This was the only thing that concerned me, Tommy.
This is such a pseudo-intellectual way of getting around the old telling of bad jokes, right, by pretending that we're discussing them. And I am not going to have that complete and utter sleight of mind here, because we don't do that. We're clear about what we're doing. We are discussing racism, and it is embedded in an awful lot of jokes, and a small part of all of us wants to hear the joke to see if it makes us laugh. So go ahead, Viktor. Now that we are all clear about our motives, let's do it.
Okay, so this reporter from Moscow News goes down to Kiev and talks to a Ukrainian and says, what would you do in the Ukraine if a Russian person would come to Ukrainian and give you something that you like? What do you like? And he says, well, I like apples. You like apples, do you? Okay, if I was to give you 5 apples, what would you do? And the Ukrainian said, well, if you give me 5 apples, I will eat them. And so the Russian says, okay, so what if I would give you 500 apples? And he says, if you give me 500 apples, I will eat them too. And then the Russian says, aha, so you'll eat 500 apples. What if I gave you 50,000 apples? What will you do then, Mr. Ukrainian? And the Ukrainian says, I suppose I would not manage to eat 50,000 apples, but I sure as hell will get a bite out of each one.
I don't get that at all, mate.
You don't get? This
Oscar? Has that got you chuckling?
No, it hasn't, I'm afraid. Must be a cultural difference or something.
The Ukraine, look, I'll explain to you. It won't be funny if I explain it, but the Ukrainian says that he would eat if he received 5 apples, he will eat them. If he gets 500 apple, he will also eat them. But if he receives 50,000 apples, the Russian is thinking, hey, you bet you couldn't eat all that much. But the Ukrainian says, no, I couldn't eat you right, but I would at least take 1 bite out of every one of them.
Okay.
You don't get it.
Well, what we need to know, you see, is this. All racist jokes, and actually all jokes, are based on fallacious, commonly held misconceptions about stereotypes. Yeah?
But the Ukrainians, they really are like that, actually.
Yeah, but what? What are you saying? That they're thick?
Very greedy and criminal and thick.
Right,
yes.
you see, you needed to... so these are jokes about Ukrainians' greed.
Yes.
They're
taking the oil and not even paying for.
You see, now, are jokes about the Irish, in which the Irish are depicted as being thick, are they racist? They're anti-Irish, although the Irish never seem to, but are they racist? Are jokes in which the Poles are depicted as being thick, the Polak jokes that you get in America, or did, are they racist?
The Poles are racially indistinct from Americans.
Well, exactly. Poles are the same racial group as the Americans who tell the jokes against Poles. And the English...
We tend to use the term racism a bit loosely, don't we, to just depict that kind of hatred and negative attitude towards someone who's different from us in some way, even if that means that they're from a different geographical area, different nationality. We tend to call it racism, but I suppose it's not strictly racism. But I suppose
Irish.
Yeah, I mean, I think the sin, if there is a sin in it, and I think we've established that there is, I think the sin is the same, really, isn't it? Because the sin is the hatred. The sin is the taking that mental attitude in your mind and in your heart that somebody is in some way inferior to you and you should look upon them with disdain. And obviously that's unjustified. It's something which has got no basis in truth, so it should be condemned as racism, and we do condemn racism. I'm sure we would all agree on that. So that's it. But I suppose you...
Okay, but Oscar, are you slightly racist? At all?
Well, I strive not to be, but I probably on occasions when you catch me in moments of weakness, you might be able to identify actions that I take or thoughts that I have which you could rightfully accuse me of momentary racism, yes. Okay. But I think as with any kind of weakness in humanity or evil in humanity, you've got to develop yourself as a person to some degree and build strength of character in yourself and work those things through, because we do have some sort of an instinctive, just a biological negative reaction towards people who we might determine as being outsiders or people who are coming towards us with evil intentions. So in a way, you can sort of begin to explain it, if not justify it, in terms of the fact that we are just biological animals, the same as chimpanzees. Chimpanzees, if you watch chimpanzees in the wild, we think they're wonderful, cuddly creatures, but they can be quite brutal. You see a pack of chimpanzees, one day they just wake up and go roaming off across the plain and attack another group of chimpanzees just because they didn't like their faces. It's the way animals do behave, so that's it. But we're supposed to be the most advanced creatures on the planet, and part of being advanced is to improve what we deem to be negative characteristics and build on those and try to eliminate the bad and replace them with the good. So
that's a yes then.
It's a yes. I can't.
Whilst I think of it, and I wasn't getting distracted during your yes. Anybody know if England won the cricket or did it end in a draw or what? Because it was 1 wicket to go and any minute they were going to call time. Anybody know? No, you guys don't.
No, don't know.
Just asking. Somebody else will. Oscar, thank you for your time and your wisdom and the revealing fact. It's good to admit that all of us are a little bit racist, because I think we are. That's my point. I think that's my point. I didn't want to start the programme with it, but I think we're all a little bit racist, and it's magnificent to admit it, because it shows that you're in touch with yourself. And you're a little bit racist, aren't you, Victor? Oscar, I'll crack on. Good to talk to you. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Victor?
I'm absolutely racist, but not against the black people. I'm racist against the stupid people.
Oh, okay.
I think stupid people are in a different race, and I think people that work for government and collect my taxes are in completely different species. Okay. And I think the people that work in bank are, again, in subspecies of the people that work in government. I'm completely against that lot, and I'm completely against stupid people.
Yeah, but look, most of us have got
If I find a black man who is clever and work in business, he's my brother.
Everybody you meet thinks that politicians are shit corrupt, right? And that's a blatant prejudice. Because when
I'm racist against politicians.
Yeah, I know. And that is just as sinister and it's almost as sinister and as dangerous as being as judging all black people as being either being inferior or stupid or being closer to the primates than we are, all of which we simply know is not true. And there are people, though, who like to hold on to that prejudice, and that does harm. But then there are people who are, and you're one of them, Victor. You reckon that all politicians are, shit corrupt, don't you?
Well, whether corrupt or not corrupt, I just think they're completely differently wired to me, and that they belong in separate species. And I can deal with them more easily and handle them more easily if I think people who work in government or people who work in banks, they are as different subspecies of humanity. I am like Homo sapiens faber because I'm making things, and they are Homo sapiens fiscus because they're just taxing what I make. And I just think of it as like big divide fixed in Neanderthal times between two different type of people. Even sometimes they are in the same family. I'm not talking about genetic race. I'm talking about the fact that the people are wired in different ways. It's like Cain and Abel in the Bible. You get some people who want to go out and make something, and other person just say, oh, I don't like the way you make this. I want to make you regulation. You will make this way, or I will make you a tax from this, and you can pay me the tax on what you made. These people in the government, they can't make nothing. They can't make single thing. They just make big crock of shit. And all that happens is we people, we got to do what they say and pay them the tax for them to be able to live and tell us what to do. We're crazy. Why we people in business and in the arts, people whether they're in trade or whether they're in the arts, we're on the same side. And these people do actually making nothing at all. Nothing services, nothing products, nothing arts, nothing education, nothing like that. Just sitting there making the laws for us and taking the taxes. They're completely different people. And the people sitting in the banks and insurance companies not making nothing but moving money around and telling us who can have loan, who doesn't have loan. They are different species. I'm racist against that, you know?
Okay. All right, look, I want to cross swords with you on that, but I've got a queue going around the block, so I'm really grateful for your time and your wisdom and your nonsense.
All right.
The jokes I will not be carrying with me out into the wider world, but thank you anyway for the reportage.
All right, thank you very much.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
Victor. Good man. And he reminded me of something. I was going to try this, and I will try this. What do you think about this, all right? So, but it's clear that a lot of people believe, and that they lay their lives down for this, that there is a huge difference between what the Quran says and what the Bible says. And I just wondered about getting a Quran and getting a Bible on the show and getting a little panel of intelligent people, such as yourself, good listener, right, and then reading out a bit from one of the books, but not saying which one. And you had to decide whether it sounded Quranish or Bible-ish.